Well, hello everybody on this beautiful planet, whether it's morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are. And we've met again today to have a chat about what's going on, but we decided there's not much going on anyway, so we probably won't talk today. No, joking, of course. Well, first of all, I'll say hello to everyone. Hello, Phil, Bill, and Will.
Hello, hello.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Salutations, humble prostrations at your lotus feet.
No need to go over the top, Phil.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm eager to join our lucky 13th chat.
We've had more than that, surely, Bill, since you and I started, but are we talking 13 since Callista joined us?
Right. The count has started again, and it's the 13th four-person chat.
Oh, okay. Well,
It's
that's good to
amazing.
know. Yeah. Lucky 13, the mystical, magical number. Anyway,
So, guys, let's get straight into it. Yeah, let's get into the...
Right.
We're going to have to cherry pick bits and pieces because there's that much going on. It's going to take forever if we talk about everything. But you guys were chatting just a little while ago while we were waiting for Will to join us about the states joining Texas. Can you explain that? Because it's a little bit beyond me, and I must admit I haven't been keeping up with it today or yesterday.
Phil, do you want to do that?
Well, I'll do the best I can, but what Callista was referring to was that before Will came on, I was asking him some questions regarding the significance of these various court cases and how it could play out to the resolution of this whole election question. And because if you read the newspaper, at least in this country, the regular TV and all of that, Trump's attorneys were getting thrown out of court all the time. And there was this big letdown earlier today or yesterday when the Supreme Court failed to honor a request for an injunction by Trump's attorneys. And a lot of people really went spiraling off the deep end because they felt this was like a spear through the heart. And then others said, no, it was just a small little aspect of a greater court case that was ruled on by the Supreme Court, but that the case itself is still live. Then we hear that 21, Bill said 17 additional states have joined Texas in the lawsuit against the 4 other, I believe it's 4 or 5 other swing states, that the way in which they handled their elections at the state level affected the equal protection clause to all other voters in the nation. But in this case, Texas is the one that filed the lawsuit against Texas voters, but other states now have joined in. And apparently this is important because it could have a wide-ranging and permanent, what's the word they use today? The outcome could be determinative in terms of naming President Trump the president. And so because one state is filing suit against another state, in the way the United States is constructed, the only court that is qualified to hear that one lawsuit from a state against another state is at the Supreme Court level, which means they have what's called original jurisdiction, which means only the Supreme Court can hear it, and turning it down as a case to be heard is not possible. They must hear it. So this court case is going to go ahead. It must be heard by the Supreme Court. And instead of it being Texas against these 4 or 5 swing states, it's going to be at least 17, possibly more by the time this thing happens, of all these states against the states of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and I think Georgia was the other state. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the latest I know about that. And apparently, if significant because while people were looking at the angle of having this massive fraud exposed to the whole world, they're going in a much quieter tack that is no less effective, but a lot less dramatic, but it would result in the electoral votes of those states if the lawsuit is successful in reducing President-elect, so-called elect Biden's electoral votes beneath that 270 electoral vote threshold. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you got it more or less.
Yeah, sort of.
I think
Sort of,
Texas
yeah.
is actually suing 4 other states, as you say, and that's significant, definitely.
No, there's 18, I think, from the last
No,
count.
there's 17 or more that are joining with Texas against the 4 swing states that have created most of the problems that have been ongoing since the election.
Right.
It seems that this is an action that kind of took them off guard a bit, and it seems also that this is an action that actually could get some very positive results from being launched.
Well, it should be, and there are 2 possible positive results as I see it. Number 1 would be that the election would be run as usual, but those 4 states would not be involved or counted. The other is that because the election was seriously messed up, that the Supreme Court could just say, okay, the election is null and void, and we'll put it to the federal House of Representatives to vote with 1 vote per state.
Each, yeah, 1 vote each.
Either one would put Trump in the position of being reelected.
Absolutely, because there's something like 30 odd Republican states and only 20 Democrats. Those aren't the right numbers. I know they're not, but they have far more Republican states than Democratic states. So that would be interesting. Absolutely.
Well, it looks very positive.
Absolutely, that too. So there we go. Texas has decided they're going to partake in this. What was interesting is that I heard, might have been on the Bannon show, War Room, or somewhere else, but they were saying like Texas has always had a kind of understanding that yes, they're part of the union, but if they want, they could become a republic again. You know, it's like we're only here as long as you guys are kind of making it worthwhile us being in this union. They've always had that kind of independence of spirit, Texas and Texans, haven't they?
Well, we have that independent spirit, but the legality of being able to secede from the union is very questionable. It is true that Texas is the only state that was an independent country prior to becoming a state, but I think once a state, it's just like every other state. You can walk in, but you can't back out.
Right. No, the South tried that 150 odd years ago.
Yeah, that didn't work very well.
No, it didn't, did it? Okay. Well, anything else then? What else, Callista? Do you have a list today?
No, I don't. Yesterday I got the sad news that a dear friend of mine had passed away, and so I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that and just going through the grieving process and getting together a message that I've sent to North Carolina for them to read out at her memorial service on Friday. So I've sort of been out of the loop a little bit, and 24 hours out of the loop, and a lot happens these days. But I've been going through my Parler feed and I'm seeing a few things. Apparently YouTube have thrown down the gauntlet, and they're going to silence anyone who is speaking about the election fraud, because they're saying that the election is not fraudulent, it hasn't been proved, and therefore any talk about it is false, and they're going to deplatform anybody who's talking about that. So I think there's going to be a lot of, lawsuits happening or whatever. Dan Bongino has come straight out and he said, I dare the tyrants at YouTube to kick me off their platform. So I think that's going to cause quite a bit of kerfuffle in the alternative media community. And Bill and I were actually talking about this a little bit before you came on the call, Bill. And yeah, what were you saying about that, Bill?
Well, just that looked like YouTube is going to be going down for now, and it might be a real good idea for everybody that wants to have or who does have a YouTube channel, find another home for it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
A lot of people have been doing that already.
Yeah, it's a good idea to have Rumble and BitChute and Vimeo or whatever else, although I think Vimeo is pretty bad on censorship as well. But Rumble seems to be very good, and a lot of conservatives are posting on Rumble now. So so there's that. Have you heard anything about that at all, Will?
I was just going to, yeah, I have a bit. Like you had heard that they are threatening that anybody who speaks about the fraudulent election is going to be brought down, but they've been doing it on and off for months and months now. I mean, it's all part of that confusion between whether they're a platform or a publisher. And they act as if they're publishers when they're not. They're supposed to be like a platform where people can just post their materials. But this is all part of what has to be understood and rectified. Who gave them all that power? How come they're designated as a platform, which means they're just supposed to let people pin stuff in on the bulletin board, so to speak, and yet they're acting like a publisher who can edit and censor and shut people down, which is not their right. So that's interesting that they're publicly proclaiming themselves as censors to the American public. And I got a feeling that might be an infringement on the constitutional rights of freedom of speech and all that, if they are a platform, which they're designated as.
Exactly.
Any thoughts, Bill? Yeah.
Well, that's ripe for lawsuits, and I'm sure they'll see lawsuits coming.
But the thing that they're underestimating, as they do over and over again, not just YouTube, but the whole group of them, is that they think they can get away with it because they're the ones that have the power. And as we've just seen from Fox TV and Fox News in particular, their ratings are plummeting. In fact, I heard just tonight for the first time ever, this was on Steve Bannon's show, or no, was it? No, it was on Dr. Steve Thurley. And for the first time, a Newsmax presenter has outstripped a Fox presenter. And the ratings have gone in favor of Newsmax. Never happened before. So it shows you how the people reacted against Fox News for their bit of treachery. And I think what we're seeing here with the YouTube, what we'll see, and this is what Dan Bongino was kind of talking about when he kind of said, yeah, go for it. Make my day.
Yeah.
Is that the people are actually starting to stand up. They're starting to figure it out. They're starting to see that ever since the rally on Saturday in Georgia there, it's like I think there's an infection of the spirit of the American people that is starting to wake them up. Because now maybe, and this is a theme I'd like to hear your comments on, guys, maybe they're starting to realize they are the power. The people are the power.
Yeah, just before anyone makes any comments, Phil, have you finished doing your home maintenance?
Home maintenance.
Yeah, a lot of banging and clanging. A lot of banging and clanging going on over there. Anyway, what do you think about all this censorship business? Where is it going to all go?
Sorry I was writing on a hard table, and I guess my microphone must be the best in the land because you hear everything.
Mm-hmm.
Apologies. But anyway, what do I think about censorship? Well, as Dave with X22 report says, they're panicking. They're panicking. So, of course, she's been saying that for over a year and a half. Every show is they're panicking. Now, how long can you panic for a year and a half without dying of adrenal fatigue or something? But I do think it shows that they're so close to the wall now that desperate measures are required, even if it's blatant. And it goes to what we've read on alt media for some time, and that I've been told personally, that one of the reasons this whole drama in these last 4 years, especially the last year, has been strung out so long was to give the average American, since this affects this country here first, the opportunity to be shown. Because if Trump went on TV and said something, no one would believe him. It's just how it is. So they've let the rioters riot. They've let the censors censor. And in the hope that this would rile up the base, the people, enough, regardless of what side of the political aisle that you're on, to say enough. And you're seeing too, where everybody, Republican or Democrat minded, is being forced to stay at home. You can't go to restaurants, bars, restaurants are shut except for takeout. All these businesses are closed that depend on close contact. And if you go to a store, the facility has to have 20% capacity. It's just crazy stuff. So they've elongated it, including the censorship issue, to show people that this is not normal. This is all about a disease that is 99% recoverable. And there's 100 examples of other contagious diseases that were far more virulent, and they never went to these measures. So it's allowing people to get caught up. They don't know what to believe anymore. They're on the computer and listening to their friends, trying to make up their own minds, which is good because now they're motivated, trying to understand what the hell has happened to their world. So to me, the whole YouTube and Google censorship aspect is a trend towards the eventual shutting down of Trump's Twitter account, which is his last honest and direct communication tool to the American people. And when that goes down and when he's censored, and that has been predicted for a while, that's when you're going to see some real fast acceleration. And that's my understanding, briefly about that.
Well, maybe that's the time he'll do the emergency broadcast system. Maybe he'll just shut down the whole bloody internet and just put out the truth of things so that the American people can finally hear what is the truth.
Well, the way it was told,
certainly not hearing it now.
The way it was told to me is that that is going to happen, and it may be 10 days. But during that time, the American public is not going to be red pilled through the American broadcast system. It's going to be more a function of listen to this one station that you're getting on your phone or your internet or your TV and follow the simple directions to stay safe. And they're going to be explained what's going down. Now, whatever's going down depends on what's going down, but it's going to be the result of where the deep state is taking this or where they have forced themselves to go. And at a certain point, my understanding, it's going to be after the fraud or the invalidation of all these court cases in favor of the Democrats for the Republicans becomes so obvious that the election basically is called for President Trump. And this is when you're going to start to see the news media and Twitter and others do some pretty outrageous things that have never been seen before by Americans. And at that point, it is my understanding, is when President Trump will activate the emergency alert service or system. And we're going to go through an interesting period of time. but it'll work out.
You said more outrageous than it is now, more obvious than it is now, with so much being reported on alt news and everything, the different channels and people that are just putting things out all over the place. It's going to be more obvious.
Well, I think if a company decides to take down the account of its president, that's pretty outrageous. Because it's not a matter of putting a little disclaimer at the bottom saying this claim is disputed. It's you're gone, you're banned, just like YouTube is doing it to everybody.
Right.
So if the president can't get a fair shake through TV, radio, newspaper, and then Twitter, which was his direct way to connect to his 60, 70 million followers, is now canceled, what avenue is left for the one person who's standing alone to steer this ship through the draining of the swamp, for him to keep the public informed? So it has been explained to me that when or if that happens, this is when, out of necessity, the emergency broadcast system in the United States would kick in, and this would basically, for the period, it consists of nothing more than news about what's going down, why it's going down, and where and how to stay safe, with simple directions and instructions for people to stay out of harm's way in case they happen to be in an area where there's an operation going down. And my understanding is, if everybody is safe at home and not at work and not at school, the only people out on the street during such a time, if some sort of regional type of martial law or other type of situation was going down, the only people on the street would be the bad guys, the insurrectionists, the people that want to create harm and try and lash out or whatever, but they will be dealt with. And my understanding is they're going to be dealt with so harshly that the United States will never doubt their military again.
Right.
It'll be over fairly soon. Yeah. Go ahead.
That makes sense to me, and feels right to the situation that we're coming into and already are in, and especially in this movement towards the 21st of December. There's been all kinds of talk about that as being auspicious, but it could happen before that. It could already happen as soon as next week, the 14th. Of course, a lot of people think that's when they have the electoral college votes come in and everything. But they are saying, a lot of channels are saying, well, that actually isn't a figure chiseled in stone, that the only constitutional date that has any real bearing is the 20th of January. So they can move around that whole thing about taking the electorate college's sanctioning of the president, all of that. So, but there is another way that I've heard of, and I do not know enough about it, but I'm going to put it out there today so that if you guys want to look it up, or anybody wants to look it up, it's something called the Miller Act. Have any of you heard that?
No.
About the Miller Act? What about you, Callista?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I have heard of it, but I've got no idea what it means.
Well, basically, there's something called leader technology. And there was a guy, and now I've forgotten his name. That's why I don't have all the details. I'm just giving you the bare bones.
Miller?
And no, it wasn't Miller. That's they didn't call it after the guy. Anyway, so the Miller Act is an act that states that the social media companies, Facebook and Twitter and all of them, was stolen from this guy who developed the technology many years ago, this leader technology, technology, and they stole it from him. He was actually one step away of getting it patented, and that's when they stole it from him. and usurped it, and they took it over, and then they said they developed it. Like Zuckerberg's story about his creating Facebook at Harvard, I think it was, and to rate women, in terms of attractiveness and all that. That's what his story is of why it got developed in the first place. Complete lie. Okay? And supposedly Trump does know about this, the Miller Act, and he's the one that can give it the stamp of approval. And in which case, as I understand, could be completely wrong, but I just put it out there. These 5 companies in particular, the main 5, would lose their rights to everything, and they'd have all their assets confiscated and all of that. Okay? And that would certainly shut them down.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
This is something not a lot of people know about or speak about, but through a dear friend, I've gotten that information, and I've done it an injustice, I know. But that's how I understand the Miller Act is something Donald Trump could pass, and that would also shut down the social media companies, the 5 in particular.
Yeah, well, it's like everything's hitting the fan at once, isn't it? You've got that sort of censorship happening, and I mean, I'm just going through my feed here. There's a meltdown because the FBI has admitted that it now has 20,000 pages and the Seth Rich laptop after years of denying it.
Yeah,
so that's come out.
Wow. Wow. I hadn't heard about that. Wow.
Eric Swalwell has been caught with his pants down with a Chinese lady who's, been doing this for ages, and apparently he has been removed from the
Intelligence Committee.
Yeah, what's Intelligence and Security, because he's not intelligent and he certainly isn't very secure. That's right.
The Oversight Committee.
He's doomed.
Yeah, that's right. And poor old Chucky Schumer is terribly worried because he reckons QAnon is a threat to our democratic institutions and a threat to our democracy and national security, both foreign and domestic. So this is the face of panic. This is the face of panic. And then you've got Hunter Biden, who reveals that he's under investigation by the feds over his taxes.
I heard about that.
So it seems like it's all happening at once. But like I said, I haven't been following that much, so you guys probably know a hell of a lot more than I do.
No, I actually wrote these things down as possible topics. But I also, you guys remember I the Spy from Twitter, right? He kept getting banned.
Yeah.
And he keeps coming back, with different handles until they find him out and they ban him again. Well, supposedly he may be back as not I the Spy, but 72 Seconds. And that's his handle, or whatever you call it on Twitter. But he wrote today that Julian Assange is coming home for Christmas. Take it to the bank, he said. And
he's coming to Australia? That's where his home is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
Made it sound like home to America, but he's an Australian.
I don't know about this I the Spy, Phil. I've been looking at it from time to time, and I don't know about that guy.
Well, I agree. And we don't know, but we're just chatting, right? And so a lot of people seem to put credence in a lot of his prescient tweets, because a lot of times they tend to show that he has some kind of inside information or knowledge that is rather what's the word I'm looking for? But whatever that word is, that's what he has. And so I'm just throwing it out there because, if he was a shill, why would Twitter keep banning him? And every time he comes back with a new name, he gets banned. So whether this new person is the real I the Spy, someone today who posts under a new name, 72 Seconds, wrote Julian Assange is coming home for Christmas and take it to the bank. So it's a pretty ballsy thing to do. And we'll see, because Christmas isn't that far away. But I have been told earlier this year that he was going to make a dramatic entrance back into the news. And I'm wondering,
Yeah.
with the fact that now that as you mentioned, the FBI has admitted that they've got all this 20,000 pages of Seth Rich, and they still have his laptop, that there's got to be proof in there somewhere that he information to WikiLeaks, and that WikiLeaks wasn't working with Russia, who hacked the DNC. This completely, deballs the Russia hoax narrative that we've been listening to for 4 years.
Just for the listeners, I'll just let you know that Phil is cutting in and out a little bit here and there, but it doesn't really interrupt the meaning of what you're saying, Phil, so no panic.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear the cutout, but then it's like it clicks back to the word you were just saying that gets clipped a bit.
So what do you reckon about that, Bill? Do you reckon that's a pretty good analysis of Julian Assange being able to be, well, I guess being able to go to the States and give evidence, because that's really what it's all about, isn't it?
Well, I think he'll come back to the States. It may not be by Christmas, or maybe that's accurate, and it will be by Christmas. I think a lot of things are going to happen before Christmas. I've got 2 different items here of military-related intel. I guess I'll go ahead with them.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, coming from StarshipErger.com today, December 9th, and I consider that to be a pretty reliable source. But they had a blurb on there which said, according to Charlie Ward and other sources, General Michael Flynn is leading a coalition of 17 nations in the largest military operation in the world, while carrying out arrests of all of the global elite criminals. This coalition of 17 countries includes the United States, Canada, Australia, Russia, Germany, Poland, the Netherlands, France, Spain, Croatia, Romania, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Switzerland, Denmark, and North Korea.
Yay. Wow, that's amazing. That's true.
That sounds right. It sounds right to me, but it's so far unverified.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know where Charlie Ward gets his info from, but he certainly gets heaps of it.
Right.
Well, we know stuff is going on all over the planet. But we didn't know that General Flynn was in charge of it.
No, that's right.
Well, I'm not going to jump too quickly on that one, because we don't know that. We know Charlie Ward has said that, and Charlie Ward has said a few things, some of which have proven okay and accurate, and some haven't. I would always maintain, just be open, ask questions, observe, but don't just buy into it, because the very countries that were listed there are the ones that have some of the most corrupt leaders, like I have to say Trudeau in Canada. And so therefore, who's acting with General Flynn on that? Is it the official government of Canada, the Liberal government, Trudeau's government? Or
probably the Canadian military.
See, this is what's interesting, but I'm going to have to stay neutral on this one and just watch what happens. I'm not against it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's the kind of news, sometimes you hear something that comes out and you go, yes, yay, and then it proves afterwards to be a bit bogus, a lot bogus sometimes. So I think we just have to pay attention to that and see what happens. But if that roundup, because I've been feeling for a while, something major has to come down. Right now, Canada is in such lockdown. Everything you said, Phil, about California, that's happening to the whole nation here. Just yesterday, the Alberta government, the province I live in, went that route too. You can't go to a restaurant anymore. You can only get deliveries, 20 occupation in the store. No curfew, though. We don't have curfew as you guys have there, but or had there. I don't know if it's still in effect. But
yeah,
yeah,
Will, can we talk about Canada a bit later? I know that's really important. There's a lot more to talk about that, but I just want to go back to this this whole situation of someone, saying something like Charlie Ward or whatever. I've come across this guy called David Zublik. Actually, he was recommended by Janine with tarot by Janine, and he was supposed to bring out this video which was showing Barack Obama in prison, and I actually had a listen to the video where he was supposed to, show this clip. And then he stopped it because he said, no, well, if you join my organization and pay for whatever, and pay, your subscription and everything, well, then you get access to this video. But I read in some of the comments that people had put that had obviously done that, and they said that's a really old clip from when Barack Obama was in Africa at some time, and he actually went into the prison cell that Nelson Mandela had gone into, just to have a look at it.
Oh yeah, that was when he was in South Africa. Yeah, that was. Gosh.
And apparently that's what this was, and if that's true, well, that is really deceptive. So
right.
yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be really careful, don't you?
Exactly.
Yeah, I said at the beginning of that it was unverified, but from what I know from other sources, if I had to make a guess, is that accurate or not? I would say yes, it's accurate, but we'll see.
Well, the good thing about it is it's the kind of action that does have to take place to break the stranglehold that deep state has in most countries. All the ones you described as being participants, certainly. But also, that would have to mean an action that goes outside the realm of the government. And if it was like General Flynn, because of his military background and his authority, doing that and connecting with the military of these 17 different nations or whoever it is he connected to, that makes sense to me. It does make sense. And, sometimes it's like when you want it so bad that you hear something like that and it's just, oh, yes, yay, it's happening. And that's why I'm being cautionary here. Like,
I think there is a lot happening. I think there is a lot happening though, Will, because just before we started this chat, Dee Dee sent me a link to a program. Ezra Levant, he's a really good journalist from Canada, and he has an organization called Rebel News, and he's put out this video. It's called the China Files, and he's showing secret military documents showing that Trudeau invited Chinese troops to train at Canadian military bases.
That's already known.
Right.
Yeah, well, he's actually got the documents.
Not to the extent. The document that was provided, because I heard about it too. I was the one that told Dee Dee to send it to you, because it is significant. This was in secret, Bill. This was the Chinese being prepared to fight in Canadian northern hemisphere Arctic conditions, even, and things like that.
Exactly, and this ties in with the whole General Flynn and the 17 nations, because obviously there are troops, as Bill was saying, the military in these countries are sick and tired of totalitarianism, and they are wanting to be able to fulfill their missions or their purpose in a patriotic way. And this whole thing about, Trudeau inviting Chinese troops to be on Canadian military bases, I don't think that would have gone down very well with the Canadian military. I can't see it going down very well with the American military or any other military. And I don't think Canadians are any different. So that is a direct threat to the United States too.
And I can tell you, there's been no reporting here in Canada about this. Not one little scrap. So he was trying to do it in secret. And this also aligns to information we got about months ago when those fires were happening on the western coast there, that there were Chinese troops on the border ready to sweep in.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that this report, which this guy waited 19 months to get this information, he got redacted information or a report, but they only used a kind of light gray material to redact words so you could read the words anyway, and their whole plan was revealed. So this is significant. This is powerful. It really is.
What I had heard was that they were not on the Chinese troops were not on Canadian military bases, but on what we in the U.S. would call Indian reservations. I don't know what you call them in Canada.
Some of them were, but this is actually showing that there was some kind of pact made with the Liberal government of Trudeau to train these guys, and they were even in the military school at Kingston, our version of West Point, and they were being trained there, and there was some training happening in Toronto as well. So this is interesting and significant, because what is coming, this may be a good segue into a little bit of a discussion about China, and that this shows me that there's actions taking place by China, worldwide actions, the South Pacific Corridor and all that, and their claims to that whole area when they have no historical claim on the Southern Pacific. The Southern Pacific, Callista, where they are, it's along that South China. Yeah, that's
the South China Sea. Now that's in the northern hemisphere.
Right. Yeah.
Will, can I interrupt you for a minute? We can get into China, but I had two military reports to give. I gave the first one. I still need to give the second one.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Okay, this comes from the HalTurnerRadioShow.com as of yesterday, December 8th. The headline is Ominous U.S. Positioning Naval Vessels Off East and West Coasts, Massive Troop Movements in CONUS, or Continental U.S. And it goes into detail on both the naval deployments and the internal troop movements. And in relation to that, Simon Parks, as of today, says, news has reached me of some branches of the U.S. military are moving to action stations as some Democrat states are threatening to leave the Union. And back to Hal Turner, he's got information about, one item of several says also last Saturday, no fewer than 12 C-130 aircraft were also on the move, also heading into Nellis. Late Saturday, no fewer than 25 C-17 aircraft were in the skies over the USA, carrying troops and equipment all from around the nation, all going to Nellis Air Force Base, which is in Nevada, next to the California border. So, and that's documented by these guys that watch the aircraft flying across the country on transponders, and they have watched these.
Monkey Works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, because I noticed a couple of days ago on OzQueen, there was a report, because all the plane fags were putting a lot of stuff up about the amount of military air traffic was just never seen anything like it ever before. It was just huge, and lots of helicopters and all sorts.
Yeah,
So
one more thing, and then I'll shut up.
No, go
This
on.
this is still from Hal Turner. On Sunday, locals on and around Nellis reported the base was swarming with soldiers and Marines. They also reported seeing a vast array of land fighting vehicles coming out of cargo aircraft. So, if I wanted to put down a rebellion in California, an attempted secession, I would pre-position troops on the California border, which is exactly where these are.
That's right.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Yep. And you're going to tell the public that they're there to deliver a vaccine, which is nothing more than saline or a placebo, because there is no vaccine that Trump is giving out to people to cure them from a BS disease that's 99%, 0.999, a bunch of nines after it, recoverable. So I think you're right, Bill. I think that there's a movement of assets in preparation for some kind of either Supreme Court decisions or the ending of this who won the election stuff, and they're putting themselves in place to actually safeguard infrastructure, people, and who knows what else. But I definitely smell rats all over the place. And having 890 planes in the air at one time, which is like what, 300% of normal in one day, that's very, very interesting.
Yeah, separate from this, they've been commenting about the massive amount of military air traffic. One more
unusual.
paragraph here. This morning, this is that same Hal Turner as of yesterday. This morning, according to the U.S. Naval Institute, the Navy has deployed 3 aircraft carriers plus a landing helicopter dock, which is a helicopter carrier, off the U.S. West Coast, and 2 aircraft carriers and their strike groups plus another helicopter carrier off the U.S. East Coast. So things are happening.
Well, we need it because, let me tell you, I think most of the nation has gone back to normal in the U.S. except for California. I walked down the street the other day, and this lady looked at me with a mask on as I walked by. I'm outside. It's windy. I'm by the beach. She says to me, I don't even know her. I'm walking by. Where's your mask? And I mean, what do you say to that? I had so many replies that I decided I should just keep my mouth shut, and I kept walking. But who the hell is she to sit there and say, where's my mask?
None of your business.
I mean, yeah, none of your business. But, you know, now they've got these legislations in, like in Los Angeles. If you leave your house and you move your body from point A to point B on foot, on scooter, on skateboard, on bicycle, in a car, you're in violation and you can be cited or arrested. So you have to stay at home unless A, you're an essential worker as defined by the mandate, or you have to work in an essential business and you are in transit from said business or back from it. And people are starting to, regardless of what their political affiliation is, they're starting to say enough of this BS. And so it's going to be very interesting. I'd love to see the military landing at Nellis, drive to Sacramento, and arrest the entire bureaucratic infrastructure of the state of California. I don't think that's going to happen, because if they arrested every guilty party, there would not be enough manpower at the governmental level to administer the state of California for its citizens, and the citizens would it would be to their detriment. So I don't think that's going to happen. But I would love for those Navy vessels.
I think it is,
Go ahead.
Phil. We can talk about this a bit later too, but I was listening to Rick Grinnell earlier on, and he had some really interesting information. But go on. I digress. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I think, the thing is that if we as civilians really knew the real truth, right, wanting us to talk about it over an open platform like this, or what's left of an open platform, we'd be giving away critical intel to the enemy. So I really think whatever we think we know right now as civilians is not, because if anything we've seen with Trump is that you think he's going here, but he strikes there. What we've said, the art of war. So I think whatever this troop movement is, the airplanes in the air, the Navy craft off the state, it's there for a reason. We just don't know what their plan of action is. And whatever it is, it's not in the white hats. It's not for them to tell the public as a heads up, because then the bad guys find out. So I think this is why we're seeing these quiet suggestions through alt media and the little commercials that come on when you watch some of these YouTube channels to get supplies and stock up on solar and food and water, just so that you don't have to leave home if your community happens to be one of those areas that gets kind of testy and you don't want to leave the house to go to the store or to get gasoline. You've got everything you need at home. You have your water, your medicine, your food. So I saw the tweet today from Grinnell, and I agree with you. I just don't know exactly what's going on, because they're purposely putting this into the public domain, when I think this is about to be the death blow of the cabal, or the beginning of the end. I think they would not want to say anything about what they're actually going to do to keep them off guard.
Well, one way or the other, we'll know before long.
Yeah, the whole Rick Grinnell thing that I listened to was just a couple of minutes off the Hannity show. He was on there with Matt Gaetz, I think. But he indicated that there were a lot of arrests that were coming up, a lot of people that were going to be subpoenaed or whatever it is. And he said that there were senators and governors and whole lots of people that are in, positions of authority. And he said, it's only the tip of the iceberg. That would be only the tip of the iceberg.
Interesting.
Mm.
Well, if you're going to arrest the governor of California and the mayor of Los Angeles, it'd be good to have a nice, healthy amount of troops along with you.
Yeah, because people will be pissed. There's a lot of people who worship the ground they walk on and throw rose petals at their feet. And that's why, and this is my opinion and feeling, that won't happen until the public actually sees what the Democratic Party and its allies have done to the United States. Once they see that and understand the harm that their political heroes have done, then they'll be a lot more lenient when they see military or marshals or whoever comes in to arrest corrupt politicians. If it's done now, or if it had been done before the election and before this election is settled, it would just look to the world and to the nation that you have an orange man bad who's a narcissist, who is a school ground bully, and he doesn't like to lose, so he's going to beat everybody up and exact revenge on his enemies. But I think if something gets revealed between now and when the election is called, whether it's by the Supreme Court or a Biden concession or whatever ends this, if the public is shown to the extent to which all of these kinds of things have been put upon the American people, and they see that, then they'll be in a much more understanding position to see why these kind of actions had to go down en masse, the so-called mass arrests, the unsealing of the indictments. I'd love it if it were for California myself, and so would a lot of people. I heard the actual popular vote count in California was at least 67% for Trump. In other words, California strongly turned red for Donald Trump in this last election, but you're not seeing it yet. And we know that Q had said a couple of years ago, watch California. And I have a feeling, like you mentioned, Bill, it could very well be that this is all about California. I would love that if that were the case.
But surely you can't wait any longer. I mean, you know, there has to come a point where the people have had enough time. It's about time, you know, they looked at and really saw what was going on. And if California is 67% for Trump, who's waiting for what? You know, why isn't some action happening? Why not?
Well, my understanding is there's a timing to the plan, and part of the extension of all this drama, the waiting, the incessant waiting, the when is this going to end stuff, was because it had been hoped that Americans taken the bull by the horns and taken their country back by themselves, especially in California. And because of the media on all levels and the censorship that goes on, or the selective reporting over decades, American can't even wrap their head around the kind of stuff that we talk about on this chat. It's just how it is. So if they went ahead and did that, it literally would go above the head of the average American or Californian. That's how it was explained to me. And they're trying to do this transition in a way where they not only ensnare the bad guys, the deep state, the swamp, as deeply as possible after they have actually committed and have been recorded of doing these crimes, but also giving the public that is unaware, the sheeple, the opportunity to see step by step how draconian these lockdowns are, how they don't have the people's interest at stake, how there's all these double standards going on, and allowing them to actually see it for themselves, because they're not going to believe the government, and most of them are not going to believe Trump at this standpoint.
Well,
Okay,
regardless of which way it goes, the plan is in place, and actions will be taken at what they consider the proper time. So we'll just wait and see.
yeah, we haven't got much choice really, have we? So, Will, what's going on in Canada? You were saying there's big lockdowns and people aren't allowed to do this and that, and so what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, well, they're introducing the vaccination next week, and we want all the healthcare workers and the elderly to start taking it. And there's talk of if you don't get a vaccination, you won't be able to fly or travel. Your job might be in jeopardy. You won't be able to ever go to a movie or a casino or a bar because you got to prove you've had the vaccination. There's talk about issuing a vaccination card for people to carry around to prove they've been vaccinated. But it's not going to be mandatory. Not going to be mandatory, they tell us. But all other rights and privileges are taken away from you. So what the hell is it? It's not mandatory. It's just they got you in a chokehold, and they're saying, if you want to breathe, then just agree to take the vaccination. Then we'll let go of our chokehold on you. It's ridiculous. In Alberta yesterday, the premier, who I believe, this is a guy called Jason Kenney, he is actually more in line with Trump, but he's had such pressure put on him. Supposedly, 73% of the population here in Alberta, which is about 4.5 million for the whole province, is all in favor of the vaccination, and they're so scared shitless that they just want to be saved, want the cure, well, the vaccination. No talk about therapeutics, no talk about the harm that's being done. They've just shut down the province as of yesterday, so you can't go dining out or anything. This at the most busiest time of the year, when people, because of Christmas, want to be out, go out for social occasions and all that. And the bar owners and the restaurateurs have been pounded heavily this year, and they were all looking forward to a busy Christmas. And then it went south about 2 weeks ago, and as of yesterday, they've even gone more over the top and saying for 4 weeks it's going to be a more or less complete shutdown. You cannot go to another person's house. You have to only celebrate with Christmas, in this case, with the people in the house. So if you happen to be an extended family and you have grown children, they can't even come to join you for Christmas because that's not allowed. So it's in a bit of a state here in Alberta, and Kinney couldn't do much about it. He's actually tried to keep things marginally open to a point where at least it's not complete total shutdown of all the businesses and everything, but might as well be, because soon the businesses and small businesses, of course, the big businesses, they can go on, but it's the small ones that are being mostly affected. I wonder if their marijuana shops are affected, because marijuana is legal in this country, and they've got a lot of little stores for that. So I don't know if they're essential businesses that will remain open or what. But it's a bit on the desperate side. That's why I actually am intrigued with the plan to take out the illegitimate leadership in all these countries, including, I very much hope, Trudeau, who is of the Illuminati family, and his father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, was big in the Illuminati families. His mother was a the Sinclair, and that's an old family, bloodline family. So that's the situation that's happening right now here in Alberta and in Canada. In other provinces, it's even worse, like in Ontario and Quebec. Quebec's the worst. And of course, they're emphasizing how many cases are, oh my God, there's going to be thousands upon thousands of deaths. And there isn't. There's dozens maybe, but they're all being tagged COVID, of course, you know. Elective surgery shut down, all this, infections in hospitals rampant. So that's what we're told, at least. So that's the situation in Canada right now, folks.
Well, related to that, I did hear in all of this election fraud stuff going on, I heard them mention that they had proof that Trudeau was elected through fraud. Keyword being proof.
The interesting thing about that, unlike the states which use the Dominion voting system, which I gather is housed in Toronto, or the company has one of its main companies in Toronto, on the same floor that George Soros has his offices, open society offices. But the thing in Canada is they use pen and paper, or pencil and paper, whatever. Paper votes, not electronic votes. So it would have had to be, and they have done things like this in the past, the old way of ballot stuffing, some way that they inflated their figures, entering extra votes or something. We know that with the mail-in ballots, that's always possible. If you get a few thousand more votes in, or a few million, as is the case in America. So I wouldn't be surprised. But the funny thing is, he's got what's called a minority government. He's only marginally ahead of the game. His party only has about 3 seats more than the other parties when they combine. But of course, he's being backed by the New Democratic Party, which is our social left-wing party over here. So if he was manipulated in his favor, you'd think they would have given him a majority. But maybe it's more believable when it's a minority and he's got the support of another political party, because we've got more than just 2 parties here. We've got about 4 or 5. But you get enough votes from those other parties to support you, and then you can still govern. So it'd be a brilliant way of not raising suspicion that it was a false election. But I do agree, Phil, that it could well have been a manipulated election last time that got Trudeau in for a second term in office. And incidentally, in Canada, you're not limited to only 2 terms of office. You go on being the prime minister as long as your party supports you, or as long as you get voted in your own personal riding or political
district.
What do they call it? District in the States. Yeah, that's right, district.
Yeah,
So,
I was going to say, it's very interesting. This whole COVID thing has disrupted the whole world, and then now we've got these reports coming out about these vaccines that they've done, and apparently Pfizer has revealed that in its late stage trial of the coronavirus vaccine, 6 people died, but the
didn't hear about that one.
The FDA in America said not to worry because they probably would have died anyway. But that seems to be a bit casual. That seems to be a bit casual. And also now, after the UK is rolling out vaccines, that's been thrown into doubt now because 2 National Health Service staff who were given the injection yesterday suffered extreme allergic reactions. So now they're saying that anyone who is inclined to have allergies or have anaphylactic reactions, they should not be taking this this thing.
Well, yesterday they wheeled it out in the UK. They made a big song and dance of giving a 91-year-old woman the jab. She was the first to receive it in the UK. And
she died in 2014 or something, that one, apparently.
That's one thing I heard, that the real person died a few years ago. And the other was that as she was being wheeled to get her jab, I don't know that I guess they didn't actually show her getting the jab, but whatever. She's flashing all these Masonic hand signals and everything. Hello? Do you think this was a con? Do you think it was like just introducing this so that the elderly think, oh, look at that woman, she's 91 years and she's getting it, and I'm only 80. Maybe I should get it too. Because, look, they're showing all these old people getting injected, and the government wouldn't lie to me about that. Oh, of course they would. So it was all a put up. Maybe not even with the woman. Who was that woman then? The name she gave being.
Well, I think she was. It was a genuine photo of her having a flu shot, but it was from 2014 or earlier because she's been dead 4 years or something, or 5 years, or however long it is.
Well, it's my understanding that the UK, they actually interviewed the woman that was about to get the vaccination, and saying it was this woman who was 91 years old. So you know how they can manipulate and twist things around.
Yeah, they can. Yeah. Oh, it's all very puzzling, isn't it? And it's all too much sometimes.
Well, I just know that here in Canada and here in Australia and other places, you know, they are still pushing the COVID. In fact, I watched the local news tonight, and that's something I haven't done for a while. I wanted to see if there was any mention yesterday and today about the fact that it's the 40th anniversary of John Lennon's death. 40 years, 1980. Now, that's important to me. But it wasn't a single mention. But there also was not a single mention on the national news and the local news, not a single mention about America or what's happening in America. It was completely, totally only about COVID. 100% COVID. You know, the fact
boring.
They're having vaccinations, the fact that it's all restricted, in fact you can't do this, you can't do that. No other news than COVID. And it's like, well, no wonder I didn't want to watch it. So, Any other thoughts or news about anything else? And how about Australia? How's Australia been in the last? Sorry, I'm just asking Calista if she's got anything she knows about Australia, or things okay there?
Well, I'm not really a very reliable witness to any of this stuff because I've just been living my life normally all the way through it. And so is everybody around me. We just happen to be living in that sort of an area. And so I really don't. I believe the borders, the West Australian border, I think is open now, and people can travel in and out for Christmas. I think you have to have wear masks and be tested and all sorts of rubbish like that before you can get on a plane. But I don't really know, to be honest. I just do not know what is really going on outside of my immediate environment, and that's quiet, peaceful, and civilized. So that's all I can say. But
I thought maybe you'd seen some Sky News, Australian Sky News.
No, I haven't for the last couple of days, Bill, because I had that news yesterday, and I just haven't gone there. And so I think Phil was going to chime in with something, weren't you, Phil? Phil? Phil's
So
not
yeah,
there.
Sorry, I just had myself muted. I'm here. I just wanted to ask you guys. I was listening to today's from Mike Adams, Health Ranger
Sorry,
News.
I didn't catch you there, Bill. I'm sorry you clipped out. I didn't catch what you heard. You were saying?
What's so weird? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you, but you clipped out, for me at least, and you were saying something about. I missed it altogether because of the way you faded out just there. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Earlier today, I had read the latest situation update from Mike Adams, Health Ranger News, and he's from Texas. He's from Texas. He's, from what I can understand from listening to him, he's very Christian. But he spent a good part of his hour-long update today talking about the former head of the Israeli space program, where he went public saying that there are ETs that exist and they're walking among us on Earth. And President Trump knows this, and the U.S. government has a treaty with them. As you know, was in all the alt media the past few days. But for someone like Mike Adams, who is giving a daily update as to what's going on the white hat world for taking back America and putting it under the Constitution, I thought that was really interesting, because most people, not everybody, not us or anyone who listens to this chat, most people just think that, little green men and space for little spaceships aren't real. And he spent a fairly good time today talking about the notion that this Israeli former head of the space program said that humans are not ready yet for ET existence. And so he was talking about that. I just didn't know if you guys had heard that podcast, what you thought about it, but I'm surprised he went into it in the level that he did, because he admitted, look, I know you're my listeners, you probably think I'm crazy, but let's listen to this. Maybe humans aren't ready because we're poisoning ourselves, GMO food, all these kind of things. And I thought that was very interesting, especially considering that in the last day or so, we've had some mainstream news articles here in the U.S. showing still photographs of declassified UFOs photographed in the daytime out in the air. So I wanted to tie that together with this information that there's a coronal mass ejection coming to the Earth, because it seems like all of these things, the off-planet Earth situation, is tied together with all the developments that are happening here, on our world right now. I just didn't know if you guys had heard or seen that podcast or the space weather of the coronal mass ejection.
Yeah, I have seen.
I haven't.
Right.
You go for it. I haven't seen anything to that. I don't know that guy at all, so can't add anything to this one, I'm afraid.
I was surprised that he put up that sort of stuff too, Phil, and I thought, wow, good for you, because what he was saying was true. I felt that, why, as I've said before, if you were any self-respecting alien person approaching this planet in your spaceship, you just put up the shutters and keep on going.
Or blow it up.
Because, well, why would you? Well, they wouldn't do that, but why? Why would you want to be here? And I know I was reading years ago when Valiant Thor was in the news, and that guy from Venus had arrived with his spacecraft that was, I think, moored or situated on the banks of Lake Erie or somewhere. And there was a guy he's now passed on, but he was a guy who got to know Valiant Thor really well, and Valiant Thor allowed him inside the spacecraft. And in order to get inside the spacecraft, he had to go into this chamber where he was sort of debugged, so that all the bacteria and whatever else that he had on himself was sort of neutralized before he actually went into the main part of the ship, because humans carry all sorts of parasites and bacteria and all sorts of things that could be quite fatal to an extraterrestrial person that wasn't used to it, whose body was of a slightly different makeup. So there's all that, and the fact that humans have the reputation of being extremely aggressive and warlike. So why would you want to be here? I think that the reason why we don't see them so much is because they don't want to be here. It's not because they can't. I mean, they want to help us, but they also realize that they're putting themselves at risk as well. And I thought it was good of him to bring all that up.
And I might take a different stance here and say, well, maybe that's part of what's about to come down, at least in Trump's second 4-year stint, that maybe we will finally have first contact with the extraterrestrials. I don't know if the same thing would ever happen if Biden and the Democrats' deep state took it, which I don't believe they will, but let's just speculate for a second. I then would agree with everyone about why would they come down. These people are evil and dangerous, and look, they eat their own children. And I'm not making a joke here. I could see how they would not want to. It would be almost like, actually, it's more right now that this is the well, we call it the turning point, but it's like, will humanity pass this test? What if all of this, in a manner of speaking, what's happening in America, the COVID worldwide, all of it, what if this is our test right now? Are we going to prove we're ready to go on? And to me, Trump and things that he would bring in during his next term of office would indicate yes. They voted Trump. They fought back. They proved that the elections were fraudulent and people went to jail and there was action. And yes, they're finally proving themselves, in which case then I could see a first contact happening. Or with Biden, the Democrats, the deep state, it's like, no bloody way, do a U-turn. Let's go home, folks. Nothing to see here. Not yet, at least. What do you think to that?
That first contact is more like the 30,527th contact.
Well, not an official world-recognized event where the ship lands on the White House lawn. Yes, there's
now that has not happened yet in recent history, but it's coming.
But what are your thoughts about if Biden and crew come in, they won't come, and if Trump and crew come in, they will come? It's just a thought that I was having just then. I thought I'd pursue. Do we deserve them coming if we haven't proven ourselves, at least to the extent of doing what's right in terms of the election and correcting the illegitimate response statistics and everything?
Well, don't you feel like the Trump team is in constant contact with extraterrestrials?
I think they are. I think they do have one or two ET types on the Q Council. But how do we prove that? That certainly wouldn't be proven and wouldn't be brought out until Q was able to come out, if you know what I'm saying. Because who's on that board?
Well, all of that may not be too far downstream.
If Trump wins, that's my whole point. I think
Well, he's never lost. He's never lost.
There's no if about it.
That's what they say. He's never lost, and there's no if about it.
And I tell you what, he's going to have not just 4 more years, but 8 more years. You watch. 8 more years.
Could well be, because this world is ready to undergo the most incredible transformation, unlike anything we've ever experienced before, as we move through the different ages, the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius now, and you know, the age of the Ram before the age of Pisces, and each has its own energetic, but it's not like what we're facing here, which is, as we know from what we've heard, the end of the Kali Yuga, perhaps the end of the patriarchal systems. We're in a very incredible crossroad here.
And we also have winter solstice coming up just a couple of weeks away.
Yeah. And there's supposed to be these alignments of the planets of Saturn and Jupiter being in conjunction, something that either hasn't happened for 200 years, or someone else I heard said 800 years. I'd prefer probably 200 years since it happened last. And when it happened last, all kinds of things were happening at that time. So that's all on the 21st, but what's also very important about the 21st is that it's the 8th anniversary of the 2012 Ascension event. 8 years ago, when that door cracked open a little bit, and the cosmic energy started coming into our atmosphere, our environment, whatever you would say. 8 years. I think it's also a very significant factor in this whole December 21st thing.
There's that number 8 again.
Infinity loop, eh? 8.
And Phil, you were mentioning about the corona rejection phenomena that's happening and heading towards Earth. I did see something on Mr. MBB333. He's put out a video about it, but I haven't actually watched it yet. But it seems to me that it is a good thing, not a bad thing. Did you pick up on that?
I didn't, but I have to admit, I know very little about space weather and the supposed drawbacks or benefits of coronal mass ejections. You always see articles on both. I just know, and maybe you're one of them, I know a lot of people that when any kind of subtle energy on a cosmic level, whether it's from the Earth or coronal mass ejection, Schumann resonance, anything like that, really spikes or gets increased, there's a lot of people who can feel it, and they're down for the count. They just can't get out of bed. They can't go to work. So in this case, the article that I briefly glanced, which was today on Rumor Mill News, was that was expected to miss the Earth in a way that it wouldn't really interfere with communications, satellites, telephones, cell phones, that kind of thing. So, but it does go towards this idea of the event and this massive solar flare that's supposed to occur. And all these other rumors that are circulating around the event, December 21st, where you're going to have Saturn and Jupiter in very close conjunction that's going to make it look like the Star of Bethlehem. And I do think, and maybe we can talk about it, that there's something about that date, there's something about that point forward that's very interesting to me in terms of how the rest of this political drama as it relates to Trump plays out. I don't know if you guys have felt that, but it just seems very uncanny that you have all these alignments at a time when the election is going to be settled. It's right by Christmas time, and you have this grand conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter.
Well, I think it's a very important day because it happens to be my birthday. So that's pretty important for me. I think that a lot of these things are set in motion probably decades, if not centuries beforehand. And it's all designed to match up with the energies of the solar system and other things, other forces that can influence the outcome one way or the other. I think, very simply, I think that's what happens.
I think you're correct. There is you can use the ephemeris and you can go ahead in time and you can figure out what's going to be happening in 20 years and this. That's how plannable it is. But I also feel very strongly that Donald Trump and the Q team and some others, they work with that astrological knowledge. It's not accidental when they plan certain things. So I do think that they know the event that's coming, maybe the 21st, on the 21st, or even another time, even in the next few days. They actually have used that knowledge of those alignments that are coming to plan around that and incorporate the energies. Of course, they can't. I'm sure Donald Trump cannot just come out and say, yeah, well, I know that there's the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter on the 21st, and I want to use that for, no. Just like we didn't know that Ronald Reagan and Nancy were big, big followers of astrology, and they used it all the time in their own personal lives, and perhaps then too, when he was in the president's office, the POTUS. So maybe they are totally aware of the energetics that are coming down, be it a mass coronal ejection or whatever, coronal mass ejection, or whatever else. Maybe the first contact, when that's going to happen, Why
Already
not?
happened.
It may well be that people in the future, when they look back and they write the history of these times, will pick that day as being the turning point. But we'll see.
Maybe. I know that awareness said, as we remember, that the actual day of the election was going to begin that downward climb off the mountain, but it would be still pretty tricky while we're seeing that, aren't we? And that was the summit, but maybe this is all part of that time that in the future it will be known as the dark days, but the time when it all changed.
The COVID days.
That's not. Well, maybe the COVID and the restrictions, maybe a lot is going to go down, as we discussed a little while ago. And by keeping people mostly at home, if there are any heavy-duty fights or conflicts, that they'll be kept safe. And maybe, again, this is known that the energies will go wild like that.
Well, I was listening to Charlie Ward the other day. It was a Q&A that he had, I think. Might have been about a week ago now, actually, when I think about it. And he was asked about, you know, this lockdown and all that sort of thing, and why is it that people are still being kept locked up and rah. And he said, well, he just sort of shrugged his shoulders and he said, well, obviously there's a lot more cleaning out of the underground facilities that are happening.
Could still be about that.
And that's really all he said about it. So maybe that's what's happening. I mean, we saw here in Australia that Victoria was locked down for a long time, and that's understandable. There was a lot of stuff going on underneath the surface there. And
Melbourne.
yeah, and around there. So I think that there's probably something to that. And like Phil was saying, that, you know, it's better for people to be indoors and together with your family and off the streets if things are going to go down.
Yeah,
and obviously
maybe, and
things, there's
especially
still a lot more to go down. So, you know, it's prolonging the whole thing.
Yeah, especially in places like California, and wouldn't have thought Alberta was in the hot spot, but the whole country is. So maybe you're right in that.
Well, you know, Will, that the whole of Calgary is built on top of an underground base.
Yeah, I've heard the reports of the caverns underneath Calgary, and that there's bases there, that there's DUMBs there. You know, I think there's several caverns down below, because we actually are on the foothill plateau, the Rocky Mountain Plateau. So it's a very stable area, actually. So what if they dug that area out a long time ago and have used it for a long time for their tunnel trains and underground bases and everything?
Yeah, well, I remember seeing a program.
For a while.
I remember seeing a program with what's his name? Is it Guy? No, Gene. I can't remember his other name, but he's apparently been given the
Cosensi.
Yeah, that's it, Phil. You know more about it than I do, but apparently he was given the nod that he could release certain information about the progress of the cleaning up of the underground bases. And he was talking about Calgary and how it was, the whole lot of it was sitting on top of this base. And there was even underground rivers that they took submarines up and down in. It just sounds incredible.
Yeah, that does sound incredible, doesn't it? Well, they supposedly do it in Antarctica. We've heard about the Nazi submarines going to Neuschwabenland.
Yeah.
Antarctica.
And I've heard that there's tunnels that take submarines from the Pacific all the way to Nevada, where they surface and underground bases. Go figure.
Right. Yeah. Nothing would surprise me. Nothing would surprise me, really.
No, not with the technology that's being revealed now. I mean, anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're kind of on the very verge of, I mean, just think about what America has to go through in the next couple of months. Well, it's not an if. Everything I'm reading and what I've been told personally, Trump is going to be inaugurated on January 20th. Then the Durham report comes out. Then you're going to see a whole bunch of arrests, but I have been told that the first arrest, just like Q had said a few times, would shock the world. And the charges for that first person, and I don't know who it is going to run a continuum from crimes against humanity to fraud to corruption, trafficking, all kinds of things that basically will be like a shot across the bow to the American public as to what kind of crimes are going to be on the docket going forward. But this particular person, whoever they are, is supposed to be pretty much at the top of the deep state pyramid, or the dark cult, whatever you want to call it. And so when the world or anyone who is sitting on the fence realizes that the United States government is about to or is actively pursuing deep state actors for crimes such as that, openly and publicly, hiding nothing, it's really going to send a shockwave to a lot of people that, not just in government, but those that were sympathizers with that particular party's leaning or their value system. And I guess that's coming. I don't know when exactly, but it's going to be soon enough that it is just before or after inauguration. And I'm being very, very general there because I don't know exactly. But that first arrest apparently is going to shock everybody because it's going to be very high up.
Now, this
And
Durham report,
don't.
Phil, I've heard that it's not actually a report, but rather a list of indictments or something.
Right. A lot of
elected.
people, yeah, Durham has apparently the power to prosecute, but he can't do so until the Attorney General, William Barr, allows him to. And they supposedly are chomping at the bit to go forward, and they're being told, hold back, let's snare some more. But Durham doesn't have to just merely issue a report. He's been empowered, because of his position to actually do the indictment. So if I said a Durham report, maybe I misspoke, because with law you have to be precise on each word you use. But apparently there's a point at which he is unleashed, and Americans finally start to see the activity and the actions they wished for 4 years ago. And it's going to result in a huge amount of arrests. And I just wish it was tomorrow, not after January 20th, and we'll see what happens between Christmas and the 20th.
I think that brings us to that point where we have to look at ourselves now and understand. I've said this so many times and spoken on this theme many times, that we are responsible, first of all, to ourselves, and that we have to have that steadfastness, that have the faith to know we're going to persevere, we're going to break through this, we're going to get to the other side of that great river. And we are going to, at the same time, be faced with the absolute challenge, which is exactly what's happening right now. So in context of what's happening right now, we have to maintain and hold that we are going to come through. Trump is going to be reelected. The world is changing and will change dramatically. Durham will issue his indictments. They will be carried out. There will be shocks. New information will come out. New ways of doing things will come out. But we have to also bring it back to ourselves again, to, are you willing to change? Are you willing to look at this and say, you know what? I've supported this through my ignorance. I'm not ignorant anymore, and I can't support the evil that exists in this world. So I will stand up for the truth. We're seeing it right now. All those rhinos who have betrayed Trump, who have shown their colors, and maybe that was all part of the plan, because they are fair weather friends, and that's being polite here. But how about us? Are we fair weather friends to ourselves? Are we taking the easy way? Do we not at some point perhaps have to stand up to these dictatorships, be it here in Canada or California or Germany or wherever, and say no more? And incidentally, they're protesting like crazy in Europe, and especially Germany, with many marches happening. Do we not have to say to ourselves, listen, what do I need to face? What darkness do I need to face inside of myself? What is the ignorance and arrogance inside my own being that keeps me locked in to old programs, old ways, old beliefs that actually don't serve me anymore. They don't feed me anymore. And am I willing to look at it? Or am I willing to look at my own life and say, yes, I want to reweave this tapestry. I want to recreate my life. Because I do think that right now, despite the wonderful, interesting, intriguing discussion we've had tonight, it is time for the big shift. It's underway. I've got to bring it into the moment. That's another point here. We've got to know that we work from this moment. As Seth, in his material, the Seth material said, your point of power is now, right now, this moment. Not about what's going to come in 3 weeks or 6 months. Not about what's happened 5 weeks ago or 5 years ago. It's right now. We're in our point of power. So if we hold that faith that we're going to persevere while in our point of power, it's going to lead us there. It's going to manifest, because that's what we can do. We can manifest. We're creator beings. So with all this journey and everything, let's not lose sight of what is the truth here. The truth is that Source Spirit is coming through loud and clear. The 21st is going to be a very powerful day. You know, the 8th anniversary since 2012, Ascension Event 2012, and we're going for it. We're going for it. So let's take this as our opportunity to do our personal growth, to take our stand, to draw the line in the sand and say no more, this far but no farther. Let's take this time to do work on ourselves if we can, looking inside, saying, okay, what do I have to look at? I've got to be willing to look at the darkness in myself so I can release it and bring the light in. And maybe when we bring the light into our own being, or at least enhance it, because I think we all have the light within us. But let's say we're going to enhance it. I think we will see that manifesting in the exterior, and that will bring everything right. So that's my rant for today.
That was awesome. I couldn't have said it better, because, yeah, it ties everything together on this whole discussion and then brings it back inside ourselves, which is the ultimate challenge of all of us, with 4 of us and any listeners. But I mean, when all these revelations and energies anchor themselves into the consciousness of the people, are we not going to have to learn a healthy way to be truthful to ourselves and also face facts and do it in a way that's harmonious, that allows us the way forward into the greater aspect of ourselves without going into some sort of crisis? And I think that was well put.
To thy own self be true. And if this isn't the time to be true to ourselves and the core beliefs that we hold, and if they're in the darkness, that they restrict us, and if we look at them and elevate them to the light, or the light to them, whichever way you want to say it, well, that's our truth. We're living our truth. And if we're living our truth, then what more can you say? It's like the truth shall set you free. We've heard that. But it's like, wow, this is the journey. And all the time I thought it was about what they're doing out there to me. Maybe it's what I'm doing inside to me.
Yeah, there is that, but I think it's important too to be kind to yourself.
I agree.
Cut yourself a bit of slack sometimes, because
Mm.
I mean, considering what we've been going through, and not just in the last year, but for years and decades and probably a century or and a half, and we've done pretty well, really. I think that those ones who have come to make a difference and to lead the way have done really well. And I think just to be here as a human being on this planet and to be able to survive and thrive to some degree, is quite an achievement. And so I think we have to acknowledge that as well.
Oh, I totally agree with you on that one, Callista. Be kind to yourself, love yourself, and we can look at the dark parts of ourselves and embrace them and love them and be kind to ourselves, and yet still say, but enough of that. Let's shift this a bit here. But I do agree. Be kind to yourself, love thyself. Very important. Bill, haven't heard from you.
Well, all of that is on an individual level, and that's very important. But the bigger picture is that the game of life on planet Earth has been spiraling downward. And at this point, we're almost about to hit the point of no return. So we've had intervention. The game of life is changing on planet Earth, and it's all going to be much, much, much better from here on.
Well, that's certainly our hope. It's got to be better in many ways than it's been for so long. Especially if we open up to that and say, yeah, sure, I wouldn't mind at all to receive the joy and the abundance that is my birthright. And I'm going to leave it at that. Otherwise, I'll be off on another tangent, another rant. And I've ranted.
Well, think about how people can develop when they get out from under being controlled and manipulated by the cabal.
They have to start by even recognizing they're being controlled and have been controlled all the time. And then they can move out from under it. You're perfectly correct in that. But we have to recognize, and this is what I'm seeing, for example, in Canada, the recognition by the majority of people of what's really going down is minimal. And maybe 25%, let's say 2/3, totally brought into the lure of the deception, and 25% standing up. But that 25% can still bring the light into it and still has to stand vigilant and stand strong. So I guess the whole point I'm trying to say in this little bit here is it's happening. When we recognize that we've been deceived, then it will happen more quickly. And I'm looking to the event, whatever the event might be or that will come in the next little while, maybe December 21st, be some kind of triggering event that is going to awaken people in a flash to what's been going down. Maybe we're about to have such an experience, and I would think that would be the greatest thing going if there's a mass awakening real quick.
Well, maybe in the U.S. we need 10 days of internet darkness with educational material provided.
Well, we could certainly use that up here.
Well, I just had 2 minutes of internet darkness because I completely lost the connection. I've just come back on again. So wow. I hope it hasn't affected the recording, but never mind.
Well, we'll see, because it hasn't said a recording ended or whatever it says usually. So, and nothing like that came across. So I think we're all right.
Good.
I'm going to propose that we bring it to a close for today. How about you guys? How do you all feel?
I think we're about done.
Yep, I'm ready.
And okay. Chris, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, good. Okay,
so we'll say goodbye to everyone, shall we? And just hang in there, folks, and just be a little bit more patient, and we'll see what comes up in the next few days. It seems like every week we're saying, oh, next week, and then next week, and next week. At some point, things have
Mm,
got to come to a head. So we must be getting pretty close now.
absolutely. And I guess I would add, and this too shall pass, and we will find ourselves on the higher ground. That's my last thought for today. My last contribution.
Right.
You're here.
And Bill, you there? You got any last words of wisdom, my friend?
Oh, the only last words I have tonight are adios, auf Wiedersehen, and namaste to all.
Good one.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Ditto. Okay, guys. Talk to you next week, and who knows what the hell will have happened by then.
Exactly.
It gets more interestinger and interestinger. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah.
And it
More
gets
and more
better
betterer.
and betterer all the time. More and more betterer. Yeah, you got it,
Yep.
Callista.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right.
Okay,
then.
Thanks,
cheerio,
you guys.
Cheerio, everyone.
Bye.
All right.
Great.
Bye.
Have a great
Okay.
week.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.